Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really tearing into a fascinating stack of source material. It's all about mastering English communication. And we're not just talking vocabulary lists here. This is about the tricky stuff, conflict resolution, telling stories that actually connect, building habits that stick, and even the language we use for personal growth.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is how the sources weave it all together. Communication isn't just words. It's like a tool for navigating culture.
Right.
We're aiming beyond just translating things. It's about applying it effectively. So not just what words to pick, but understanding, the structure and the cultural background that makes your message actually land properly or not.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. So our mission here is to pull out the really practical language bits, the crucial cultural insights. We've got a path laid out. We'll start with language for, let's say, external conflict, then move to influencing others through stories that's external influence. Then we turn inward, tackling internal discipline with daily routines. And finally, we'll look at the language of our internal mindset. The whole idea is to make these tricky conversations, even just your eating routine, into real learning moments for you. All right, first up, conflict. It happens, right? But the sources really stress that the language you choose, well, that's what decides if things get heated or if you can actually sort things out.
Exactly. If you just jump in attacking the idea, the conversation's basically over before it starts.
Yeah, you shut them down.
Yeah.
So the sources highlight these phrases for disagreeing politely. Things like, I see your point, but, or maybe just a simple, I feel differently.
And that structure, I see your point, but it's not just about manners. It's actually kind of a cognitive trick.
Oh, how so?
Well, when you say, I see your point, you're acknowledging their view first. That triggers a sense of fairness in the listener, makes them way more receptive when you then introduce your point with, but.
Oh, okay. So it sets a tone like we're solving this together, not I'm right, you're wrong.
Precisely. It's collaborative.
And the source even points out how to say it. Really lean into the word point in I see your point.
Yeah.
Gives it that sincerity.
Right. You validate their input before you offer your own view.
That makes sense.
And that whole strategy becomes even more critical when you think globally. The sources talk about this high context versus low context culture divide.
Right. I saw that. Like in the U.S., maybe we value being direct, even when we disagree.
Often, yes. That's typical of low context cultures. But in high context cultures, the source mentions Pakistan as an example, many South Asian cultures are similar. There's a much stronger preference for indirectness, to keep things smooth socially.
So they might use phrases like, maybe we could consider, instead of just saying, no, that's not right.
Exactly. It preserves harmony.
Okay, so here's a question then for you listening. If you're in one of those high-stakes cross-cultural situations, how do you figure out how direct you can be? Like, in the moment?
That's a great question. The sources suggest looking at the relationship you already have. If it's solid, high trust, you can probably lean a bit more direct. But if it's new or more transactional, playing it safe with those indirect phrases, the ones that let the other person save face, that's usually the smarter bet.
I hadn't thought about the relationship history being the key factor there. That really clicks. Okay, let's shift to apologies. Because sometimes, the conflict is because you messed up. A simple, I'm sorry is okay, I guess. But the sources emphasize specificity. That's what shows you're taking responsibility.
Absolutely. It's the difference between like, oops, my bad, and look, I'm really sorry I missed that deadline. I completely misread the requirements, and I take full responsibility for the delay it caused.
Big difference.
Huge. That specificity, that's what drives accountability. It signals you understand what went wrong and, crucially, what needs to change.
Right. And then for rebuilding trust, you need phrases like, how can I make this right?
Yes, or even just acknowledging the impact. I don't mean to upset you. It shows empathy.
The sources also touched on formality. Like, British English might use, I do apologize, which sounds quite formal to my ear.
Right.
Compared to American English, maybe just, sorry about that.
Yeah, definitely a difference there.
But is there a risk? Like, if you use, I do apologize for something minor, does it sound insincere or just weird?
That's a really sharp point. Calibration is key. If I do apologize is your go-to for spilling coffee, what do you say when you've actually messed up big time?
Right, it loses its impact.
Exactly. The source is stress matching the formality to the gravity of the situation. We've all heard those apologies, right?
Definitely.
The goal here is moving from being defensive to being actively accountable and using language that fits the mistake.
Okay, So we've talked about handling external conflict. Now let's flip it. How do you proactively influence people? Through stories, right?
Moving from managing arguments to crafting really effective emotional narratives.
Last time we might have focused on structure, intro, climax, whatever.
Yeah.
This time it's about emotional weight.
Yeah, how do we breathe life into it, make it more than just a sequence of events?
And this is where it gets really good, I think. Moving beyond just plot points to really engaging people emotionally, using vivid verbs. That's the key takeaway.
Yes.
Like the examples they gave, instead of just saying someone was scared, used trembled.
Ooh.
Or instead of smiled, they beamed. Or maybe gasped instead of just was surprised.
See, those verbs, they don't just state facts, they instantly create a feeling, don't they? It makes it palpable. And it changes the agency. He trembled, feels active, immediate. It pulls the listener in, makes them feel it too.
Right, like they're experiencing it with a character.
And you amplify that with your voice, of course, varying your tone, maybe whispering for suspense.
Yeah.
Or raising your pitch for a big reveal. That delivery is crucial.
Okay, and then there's the cultural angle to storytelling too.
Yeah.
The sources point out that Western stories often have this lone hero vibe.
Yeah, the individual conquering the challenge narrative, that I did this story.
Right, but that contrasts with other traditions.
Big time. Think about South Asian traditions, like the source mentions Urdu Dastans. These epic tales often blend adventure with deep moral lessons.
Okay.
And they consistently emphasize community wisdom, collective effort. It's not just about the individual's triumph, it's often about how the group succeeded. The hero needs others.
So let's make that practical. If I'm telling a story at work about a successful project, should I maybe shift from, I figured this out and solved it, to something more like, the team pulled together its experience to get past this hurdle?
Exactly. That shift from I to we, that's the actionable insight, especially if you're in a culture that really values the collective.
Got it.
So you need the words to describe that collaboration. Understanding the different types of stories helps too. Like, is it a fable with a moral, a short personal anecdote, or a grand epic? Knowing that helps you choose language that highlights either individual achievement or group effort, depending on who you're talking to and what your goal is.
Okay, so we've gone from external conflict to external influence.
Okay.
Let's bring it inward now. Let's talk language for internal discipline. And believe it or not, your evening routine, apparently a great practice zone for grammar.
It really is. Daily habits force you to use different tenses, especially when you talk about them.
How so?
Well, think about describing your evening. I finished my report before I started to unwind. Boom, you've just used past perfect and simple past.
Ah, okay.
Or planning. If I finish the gym early tomorrow, then I will have time for dinner. That's a conditional clause right there. You're practicing these structures naturally.
That definitely elevates the simple act of talking about your evening.
Yeah.
And it gives weight to words like unwind,
Yeah.
you know, that intentional relaxation, or being a night owl, or the whole idea of winding down. But let's go a bit deeper. Why do the sources focus so much on the act of winding down itself? What's the significance?
I think it taps into cultural views on productivity versus actual leisure. Your word choice matters. If you say you're unwinding, that sounds intentional, restorative. But if you say you're just killing time, that sounds more like passive consumption. Like leisure is just empty space between work.
Wow. Okay. The language reflects whether you see rest as necessary or just filler. That's powerful.
It is. And the cultural differences in routines are pretty stark, aren't they? The source mentions Spain, with dinners at 9 or 10 p.m.
Yeah, which means winding down is much later.
Exactly. Contrast that with, say, the UK, where evenings tend to wrap up earlier.
So the question for you, the listener, becomes, when does your culture linguistically draw the line between the productive day and personal time?
And that line is getting seriously blurred by technology, which has given us a whole new vocabulary to describe it.
Oh, absolutely. Modern phrases like binge watch something.
Right.
Or scroll endlessly on your phone. And that very necessary concept, the digital curfew.
It's amazing how language adapts, isn't it? We just turn nouns into verbs instantly to capture these new behaviors.
And we need to be able to use these terms naturally.
We do. And again, you see cultural contrasts in how these things play out. Screen-heavy evenings might be common in the U.S.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Yeah. But then you look at cultures like Japan, where there's often more emphasis on tech-free evenings, promoting mindfulness, that separation.
So our personal routines, and even just the words we use about them, are reflections of these bigger cultural norms.
Definitely.
Okay, final section. Let's take that internal discipline and focus it on refining our mindset. This is really the language of personal growth.
Yeah.
It's about constructive self-talk, right? The sources talk about using affirmations, but they have to be done correctly.
That's right. An effective affirmation isn't just like wishful thinking. It needs structure.
Structure.
Phrased in the present tense, active voice. And crucially, avoiding negatives.
Okay, give me an example.
So you wouldn't say, I hope I don't stutter when I give my presentation. That focuses on the stuttering, the negative. Instead, you phrase it as a certain to. I communicate confidently and clearly. See the shift. From maybe not to definitely am. That linguistic switch is step one towards actually embodying it.
Embodying it. So we're using grammar to kind of reprogram our behavior. The sources had some good ones. I handle challenges with grace.
Or I speak up effectively in meetings.
Potent stuff if used consistently.
So how do you know if it's working? How do you measure the impact of this inner language?
Good question. The source points to two ways. Subjective measures, that's just feeling calmer, maybe more in control.
Okay, the internal feeling.
Right. And then objective measures, that's actually doing the thing, like speaking up in that meeting where you normally wouldn't have dared.
Gotcha. Subjective feeling, objective action. The vocabulary here gets pretty deep too, which I liked. The source brings in synchronicity, defined as meaningful coincidence. How does that fit?
Think of synchronicity as feedback from the universe, maybe, or just your subconscious confirming things.
If you're affirming, I am confident, and then out of the blue, you find yourself handling a tough conversation really smoothly, that meaningful coincidence, it validates the affirmation. It suggests your inner world is starting to align with the language you're choosing.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. It's like a signpost.
Exactly. And that leads right into the final key verb here, embody.
Right. An affirmation isn't really doing its job until you embody it.
Precisely. Embodying it means you're not just saying the words, you're living them. If your affirmation is, I'm a powerful speaker, embodying it means your posture changes, your voice gets stronger, your word choice becomes more decisive.
So the active voice you use in your self-talk starts to manifest in your actual physical presence and actions.
That's the goal. The language becomes the reality. Hashtag outro.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? We've journeyed quite a bit, haven't we? From navigating tricky disagreements politely to crafting stories that genuinely connect emotionally, and then turning inward to use language to shape our habits and even our core beliefs.
Yeah, quite the range.
I think the big takeaway is that every single interaction, whether it's an argument, a story you tell at lunch, or just how you talk to yourself about your day, every single one is a chance to practice and apply these culturally aware language skills to really drive your own mastery.
Well said. And we spent a good bit of time on the language of apologies and disagreements, didn't we? We talked about how specificity shows accountability.
Right.
And how cultural norms really shape the formality you need. So here's a final thought for you to chew on, building on all that. Given what we've discussed about specificity, intention, and cultural appropriateness, how would you, in your own world, define the difference between a culturally acceptable excuse, something designed to deflect blame, and a truly genuine, specific apology that demonstrates real accountability?
Ooh, that is a sharp question. Distinguishing excuse from apology in our own context. Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
We'll catch you next time.